Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II here. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider, a priest of Legions of Christ and a theology professor. This is a podcast on the Starcross Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 160. We're covering Optatum Totius 3 on the need for minor seminaries. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan in more detail at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday we started chapter 2, which we'll finish today, and chapter 2 is the urgent fostering of priestly vocations. Yesterday we talked about the need, we all need to promote vocation for the sake of the whole church, and vocations are a response to grace. Today we are going to talk about cultivating those vocations, particularly in minor seminaries, but also in other schools. I'll get to what minor seminaries are in a minute. So, paragraph 3 only has two subparagraphs today, A and B. A just is mainly about minor seminaries, and they're good for fostering vocations, and B is about cultivating vocations in other types of schools, and I would think universities there. So, what are minor seminaries? So, minor seminaries are often also called high school seminaries. They're usually a boarding school, although sometimes they can be a full-day school, and they're for young men who are thinking about a vocation. At this point, they're not entering the community, they're not making any kind of commitment at all beyond maybe they're staying for the semester so they can do their studies well or things like that. But it is a place where young men who are thinking about it can be in an environment that promotes that, right? And so, for example, most of the ones I know are boarding schools, but for example, the Diocese of Rome has one that is just they go to it every day and then they go back home every night to their own house, right? But it's really important. This is not like, hey, they have a vocation or not. This is just kind of an initial thing, a kind of a boarding school that can cultivate that and be good for that vocation to go forth. And sometimes in the U.S., the term minor seminary is used for what is more properly called a college seminary or something like that. So to become a priest, you need 2 degrees. You mainly need a Master's Divinity degree. I'm using the American terms. Other countries have different terms for it, but it's a 4-year theology degree. And the prerequisite for that is a 4-year Bachelor's of Arts degree, where you have to have a certain number of philosophy classes and a smaller number of theology classes, right? And you can have a Bachelor's of Arts degree in different things. Oftentimes, if you join the seminary with already a degree, you might have to go back and do 1 or 2 years to get the various requirements, but not do a whole bachelor's degree. It just depends a little bit on the community and on the degree you had beforehand, or the community or diocese, right? So I just want to give an introduction of what we mean by minor seminaries so that the text of 3a here is going to make sense. Otherwise, 3a would be kind of confusing. So 3a is basically saying minor seminary is a good place to cultivate vocations or to foster vocations. Let's read the text. A. In minor seminaries erected to develop the seeds of vocations, the students should be prepared by special religious formation, particularly through appropriate spiritual direction, to follow Christ's Redeemer with generosity of spirit and purity of heart. Under the fatherly direction of the superiors, and with the proper cooperation of the parents, their daily routine should be in accord with the age, the character, and the stage of development of adolescence, and fully adapted to the norms of a healthy psychology. Nor should the opportunity be lacking for social and cultural contacts and for contacts with one's own family. Moreover, whatever is decreed in the following paragraphs about major seminaries is also to be adapted for the minor seminary to the extent that it is in accord with the purpose and structure. Also, studies undertaken by the students should be so arranged that they can easily continue them elsewhere should they choose a different state of life. Right, so that's what we have here, right? We established these to help these young men be open to vocation, right? Not all are going to be called. Some might be thinking, maybe, or things like that. Some might go and they're very committed to it, right? And this is be under the urgent care of both the superior and the parents, right? They're still under their parents, and make the daily routine, right? Match the adolescent development. Give them cultural opportunities. Give them the opportunity to be with their families, right? We can't just treat them as if they're vowed religious. They aren't. And they're 14 years old. They're not 24. And so things have to be adapted to their age, right? And that's proper, right? And we need to do that. We need to have them have that time with their families, have the opportunity so they can truly be free, truly discern, but also to give them that environment that helps them cultivate a vocation if they have a vocation. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to have a vocation. In fact, the majority who go there are not ordained. A strong majority. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know, like, even to go on to the major seminary afterwards, it's not all of them. It's maybe half or 2/3 or something like that go on to even the major seminary. And then of those, not all of those are ordained, right? So that's the kind of thing, right? And, we need to adapt to them, right? That's what they're saying there with the things of there's other norms in here, but we can't just apply the norms straight on, right? Because they're not 24 years old studying religious formation. They are 14 years old studying physics or something. I don't know. They're probably just science at 14, maybe 18 they study physics. I don't know exactly. Depends on the exact state and rules exactly how they organize their science classes. But I hope you get my point there, right? And so this is an area where I think we have to question if we're really following what Vatican II says, because Vatican II says we should have minor seminaries. How many are in the U.S.? There's 3 that are in union with Rome, and all 3 are religious. There's 1 or maybe 2 that's that is sedevacantis type, right? Or somehow not in union with Rome. But that's a whole other question, right? The kind of trad Catholics. But right, why do we only have 3 and they're all religious, right? They're all for religious communities. No dioceses have them in the U.S. But this is promoting for dioceses to have minor seminaries, not so that every single guy that's going to be an ordained priest. No. You might have a class of 20, you might have 2 guys who are ordained priests out of that class. That's fine. But you help those other young men get a good high school education and get that kind of spiritual thing. So then they go on and be good fathers, husbands, good parish leaders because they have all that extra spiritual information they might not have had in another school and things like that. It's great. Pope Leo XIV went to one. He went away to one in Michigan from Chicago. And he went there for, high school. That's where he studied high school. And that's what we did, right? So you can tell when I'm recording this just after Pope Leo XIV was elected. So congratulations, everybody. We have an American Pope. This is going to come out like over a month after he's elected, but I'm recording it then. Anyways, let's continue on to paragraph B, which is cultivating vocations in all types of schools. It's pretty straightforward. B, with equal concern for the seeds of vocation among adolescents and young men, are also to be fostered in those special institutions which, according to the local circumstances, serve the purpose of a minor seminary, as well as among those who are trained in other schools or by other educational means. Finally, those institutions and other schools initiated for those with a belated vocation are to be carefully developed. Right? So this is the roles of other schools, other Catholic high schools. How do we promote vocation in our Catholic high schools? A little bit here is how sometimes they would do it is they might have one high school in the diocese where the minor seminarians go to that high school, but also has the local people of that town or whatever in. So, you kind of combine that so it makes it a little more practical, economical, things like that, right? And that's good because they're providing social interaction. Also just that minor seminaries have enough people, have sports teams playing the local leagues between the high schools and things like that. And then also have for later vocations. So in different times and places, the vast majority of vocations came from the minor seminaries. That's not the case anymore, obviously, in the U.S. And so places like where I teach Holy Apostles, it was founded really for those later vocations. Now, a lot of the U.S. seminaries have started doing that more, and so now it's not as unique in that sense. The vocations will come when they're, 20, 25, 30 years old, right, when they're entering the seminary. I was 19, so almost 20. So I guess I'm like at the low end of a late vocation in that sense. I did 2 years of engineering, right? So thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. I do this podcast on a volunteer basis, and my local religious community relies on donations to help pay our bills. If you want to support my community, you can go to patreon.com/frmatthewlc. There's also a link for a one-time donation on my own site, frmatthewlc.com. You can also donate to help StarQuest at sqpn.com/give. Tomorrow we're going to continue with Optatium Totsu's 4 to 5, the next 2 paragraphs, which are on practical matters for setting up major seminaries. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which can provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan. Amen.